Brothers and sisters, sometimes in the journey of life, our hearts tell us to walk away, to close a door, to turn the page. But what if that whisper in your spirit isn't the voice of finality? What if God is telling you, not yet? Not yet to let go, not yet to move on from that someone who still carries a divine purpose in your life. In the storms of doubt and confusion, God speaks, not always in thunder, but sometimes in the quiet, persistent echoes of your soul. He speaks through signs, through moments of clarity that say, hold on a little longer. Because in that someone, God has not finished writing the story. Listen close, beloved. There are 6 unmistakable signs from heaven that tell you, don't move on yet. When you see these signs, you will know God is still at work, weaving his plan through that connection, through that relationship, through that heart. You may feel the pain, the frustration, even the weariness, but the divine voice says, wait. Don't walk away prematurely from a God-ordained season, for sometimes God's greatest blessings come in the waiting, in the nurturing of what he's already planted. Let me share these 6 signs with you so that you can hear clearly, see clearly, and trust deeply what God is telling your heart. There is a sacred, unexplainable force that binds 2 souls when God himself is at work. It is not the kind of connection built on mere convenience, or fleeting emotions, or the easy moments when everything aligns. No, this connection runs far deeper, beneath the surface, reaching into the very spirit of who you are. It is the invisible thread that ties hearts together, even when distance, silence, or time seem to say otherwise. It is a bond not just of flesh and blood, but of the spirit, an eternal thread woven by the hand of the Almighty. When God places someone in your life, he does not do so lightly. He does not entrust your heart to mere coincidence or happenstance. There is divine intention in that encounter, and when God's purpose is involved, even the fiercest storms, the longest silences, and the heaviest burdens cannot sever that connection. In fact, the harder the trial, the stronger the tie becomes. It is in these moments of testing that the Spirit reveals its true resilience. You know what I'm talking about. There are people who enter your life, and no matter how far they go or how long they stay silent, something within you remains connected to them. It's not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's a quiet knowing, a subtle pull at the core of your being that cannot be ignored or rationalized away. It is a spiritual resonance that hums beneath the noise of the world, a divine vibration that echoes the truth that this is not the time to let go. This connection feels like a whisper from heaven, soft but persistent. It's like a melody you can't quite forget, a prayer that lingers in your heart. It's that inexplicable feeling that this person is more than just a chapter. They are part of the story God is writing through your life. And when the Spirit of God is involved, no distance or silence can fully erase the sacred imprint left on your soul. At times, the natural mind wants to convince you that it is over. The world says, move on, let go, find someone new, turn the page. But your spirit resists because it knows better. It feels a divine gravity pulling you back, reminding you of the promises God whispered long ago. This connection is a spiritual anchor in a sea of uncertainty. And here's the miraculous thing. This spiritual connection does not always depend on physical presence or constant communication. In fact, sometimes God's greatest work is done in the spaces between words, in the silence that tests your faith. The quiet seasons can be the richest soil where this connection grows strongest. It is there, in the waiting and in the praying, that God breathes life into what looks dormant to the human eye. You might feel a deep urge to pray for this person, to intercede on their behalf even when they are unaware of it. You carry their name before God's throne, asking for healing, growth, and divine intervention. That prayer itself is a testament to the spiritual connection that remains alive and well. It is God's way of saying, I am still working here. Do not despair. Sometimes God will reveal glimpses of this connection through dreams, through visions, or through the gentle nudges of the Holy Spirit. You may find that your thoughts are drawn repeatedly to this person, not out of habit or obligation, but because the Spirit stirs within you a divine reminder. It is a reminder that the story is unfinished, that there is more to come. This connection also manifests in moments when you sense God's peace when you think of this person, even if the circumstances are difficult. This peace is not of the world. It transcends understanding. It is the Spirit of God reassuring your heart that this relationship is protected, kept, and preserved for a purpose beyond your current comprehension. It is a sacred covenant that God is honoring, even when the road looks uncertain. It is important to recognize that such a connection can be misunderstood or mistaken for weakness or stubbornness by others. They might say, "Why hold on? Why not walk away?" But when God ties two souls together, what looks like holding on is actually an act of faith, a holy persistence grounded in the assurance that God's timing is perfect and His plans are good. You may find that this connection prompts you to grow in ways you never imagined. It challenges you to develop patience, to cultivate forgiveness, and to deepen your trust in God's wisdom. The spiritual strength that flows through this bond is a refining fire, shaping your character and preparing both hearts for the fullness of what God has promised. In the quiet hours of the night, when you wrestle with doubts and fears, the Spirit within reminds you of God's faithfulness. It says, "Hold on, beloved, this is not the end." It reminds you that God's plans are not thwarted by mistakes or setbacks. No, they are refined through them, and the connection that remains spiritually strong is evidence that God is still at work, still writing, still moving. This bond is not dependent on perfection or flawless circumstances. It is anchored in grace, mercy, and divine purpose. It is the kind of connection that sees beyond human flaws to the potential God sees in both of you. It believes in restoration where others see only ruins. It trusts that what God has joined in spirit cannot be undone by mere human hands. If you listen closely, you will hear God's voice in that connection. It may come as a still small voice that says, "Wait on me. Do not move on just yet. There is more to come." This voice is not a call to remain stuck in pain or denial, but an invitation to stand firm in faith and to trust the process of divine transformation. When your heart aches with longing and your mind is filled with questions, remember that this connection is a spiritual lifeline. It is a sign that God is not finished with the story He started with you and this person. It is a promise that the divine thread that ties you together is unbreakable, even when tested. So hold fast to that connection. Nurture it with prayer, with patience, with hope. Let it be a source of strength rather than despair. Know that God's timing is always perfect, and in due season, the fullness of His plan will be revealed. This connection that remains spiritually strong is a beacon of hope. It is a sacred thread woven by the hand of God Himself, and when you honor it, when you listen to its divine call, you align yourself with a purpose far greater than you can imagine. In that sacred space, the impossible becomes possible. The broken is made whole. The waiting becomes a pathway to glory, and the connection that once seemed fragile becomes a testament to the power of God's unfailing love. Trust this connection. It is God's gift, His promise, His voice saying, "Hold on, for the best is yet to come." There is a mysterious and wonderful thing that happens when the storms rage all around you, when life feels like a whirlwind of confusion, pain, and uncertainty. It is in those moments when everything seems to be falling apart that a deep and unexplainable calm begins to settle within your soul. It is a peace that doesn't come from the world, from circumstances, or from the people around you. It is a peace that descends like a gentle rain in the middle of a thunderstorm, a peace that can only be described as divine. You may not always understand how it happens. You may find yourself surrounded by chaos, arguments, disappointments, setbacks, broken dreams, and yet within the very core of your being there is a stillness that refuses to be disturbed. This peace is not a denial of reality or a shallow hope that things will simply get better. No, it is much deeper. It is a settled assurance, a sacred confidence that, despite the noise and the confusion, something greater is at work, something far beyond what your eyes can see or your mind can comprehend. This kind of peace is a whisper from heaven, a gentle but powerful reminder that God has not abandoned you, even when the world seems to say otherwise. It is a supernatural tranquility that stands firm in the face of fear, anxiety, and doubt. It is a sanctuary for your soul, a refuge where your heart can rest even when everything around you is uncertain. When you think of someone who remains in your life despite the difficulties, this peace is the sign that God is still present in that connection. You may ask yourself, how can I feel peace when there is so much pain? How can my heart be calm when everything feels so chaotic? The answer lies not in your circumstances, but in the Spirit of God dwelling within you. There is a divine calmness that God imparts to those who trust Him, a peace that surpasses all understanding. It is a peace that guards your heart and mind, keeping you steady when the winds of life blow fiercely. This peace does not mean that everything is perfect or that all problems have vanished. Instead, it means that you are anchored in something far stronger than the storms themselves. You may find this peace comes in the quiet moments, perhaps during prayer or meditation, or even in the stillness of your own thoughts. It might come unexpectedly, in the middle of a busy day or in the solitude of the night. But when it arrives, it speaks louder than any words could. It tells you that there is hope, that there is a future, that you are not alone. This peace is a sign that God is still working behind the scenes. It is the evidence that His hand is on your life and on the life of the one you are connected to. It is a reassurance that the struggles you face are not in vain, that there is purpose in the pain, and that the path you are walking is under divine supervision. Sometimes people mistake this peace for complacency or passivity. They think if there is peace, why not move on? Why not settle for something easier? But this peace is not a call to give up or to accept less than what God has promised. It is a call to endure, to persevere, and to trust in God's perfect timing. When God's peace is present, it empowers you to face challenges with courage. It strengthens your faith to believe that what seems impossible will be made possible. It quiets the voices of fear and doubt, allowing you to hear the voice of God more clearly. It is a sacred gift, a holy presence that transforms the way you experience hardship. In relationships, this peace often comes as a confirmation that God is still in the midst of the situation. It tells you that despite misunderstandings, disappointments, or pain, there is still a divine purpose unfolding. It reminds you that love, when nurtured by God's Spirit, can survive the hardest trials. You may find that this peace causes you to act differently. Instead of reacting out of anger or despair, you respond with grace and patience. Instead of rushing to make decisions out of fear, you wait with confident expectation. This peace is the source of wisdom and discernment, guiding your steps even when the future is unclear. There is a power in this peace that cannot be explained by human logic. It is not a fleeting feeling, but a deep-rooted assurance. It sustains you when your emotions fluctuate and your circumstances change. It is a steady flame that burns bright even in the darkest nights. When you experience this peace, it is as if God is saying, I am here. I have not left you. I am holding your heart, and I am holding the heart of the one you wonder about. This peace is a divine embrace that comforts you and keeps you from making premature decisions that might close doors God intends to open. You might wonder how to cultivate or recognize this peace in your own life. It often comes when you surrender control, when you lay down your fears and anxieties before God. It arrives when you choose to trust in God's promises rather than your own understanding. It flourishes when you commit to prayer and seek the presence of God daily. It is important to be sensitive to this peace, to listen for it above the noise of your circumstances and the voices of others. When peace is present, it quiets the restless thoughts that say leave or give up. It calms the racing heart that longs for certainty and control. Instead, it fills you with a calm confidence that God is still at work. There will be moments when the peace seems distant or hard to hold on to, especially when the chaos feels overwhelming. But even in those moments, the presence of peace can be found if you look deeply. It might be a small spark, a gentle reassurance, a momentary calm that reminds you God's grace is sufficient. This peace is not just for your comfort. It is a signpost directing you to stay the course, to hold on to the connection God has placed before you. It is a signal that God is weaving something beautiful out of the broken pieces, that He is crafting a testimony from the trials. Remember, peace is one of the fruits of the Spirit, and where the Spirit of God dwells, peace abounds. If you find yourself wrestling with the decision to move on, let this peace be your guide. It is a divine compass that points to God's perfect plan for you and the person He has intertwined with your journey. So when the world around you is loud and chaotic, when the storms of life threaten to uproot your faith, listen for that still, small voice of peace within. Let it be the anchor for your soul. Let it remind you that God is in control, that He is working all things together for good, and that His timing is perfect. Hold on to this peace, cherish it. Let it be the strength that keeps you faithful, the calm that steadies your heart, and the light that leads you through the darkest valleys. For in this peace there is a promise that God is not finished with your story, that He is still holding your hand, and that He is telling you to stay, to wait, and to trust. And when you walk forward wrapped in this peace, you will find that no chaos can shake what God has firmly established. In the journey of life, there is a rhythm to the seasons God ordains, times of planting, growing, waiting, and harvesting. Often, when we face the uncertainty of relationships and wonder whether to hold on or let go, God begins to speak through the very circumstances around us. He begins to open doors, opportunities that show His hand at work, paths that lead toward growth and reconciliation, and moments that reveal His divine favor. These openings are not merely chance. They are divine invitations that encourage you to keep faith and trust in His timing. When you are connected to someone in a way God has ordained, you will notice these openings appearing, sometimes subtly, sometimes clearly. They come as chances to deepen understanding, to heal wounds, and to step into a greater purpose together. These openings are signs glowing like lanterns in the dark, guiding your steps and reminding you that the story is far from finished. You may find that doors open in ways that surprise you. Perhaps an unexpected conversation arises that brings clarity. Maybe a long, closed line of communication is restored, or an opportunity to serve or support one another comes forth when you least expect it. These are not random moments but divine prompts, signaling that God is still at work in the relationship. These openings also come in the form of personal growth. God will bring opportunities for both hearts to mature, to shed old patterns, and to embrace new ways of loving and understanding. When doors open in this way, they invite you to move beyond hurt and bitterness toward forgiveness and restoration. They call you into a higher place where grace flows freely and healing becomes possible. Sometimes the doors that open are not easy to walk through. They may require sacrifice, humility, or vulnerability. But when God opens a door, He also gives the strength to walk through it. These moments test your faith and your willingness to trust in what is unseen. The open door becomes a place of transformation, a place where God's purposes are revealed and fulfilled. You may notice that even when some doors close, moments of disappointment or rejection, new doors begin to appear. These new openings are often better aligned with God's plan, leading you away from what could have been a dead end and toward a future filled with hope and promise. It is a reminder that God's ways are higher and His timing perfect. When you keep seeing doors open in your connection with someone, it is a strong indication that God is not finished. It means that the relationship still has life, potential, and a purpose that has yet to be fully realized. These open doors provide space for hope, for patience, and for the unfolding of God's perfect will. It is important to recognize these moments and not dismiss them. Sometimes the heart is tempted to ignore the open door out of fear, past pain, or the desire for control. But when you lean into these openings, you position yourself to receive what God is offering. You step into the flow of His grace and open yourself to the blessings He has prepared. These openings are also a form of encouragement. They remind you that God's hand is active and that His favor is upon the connection. Even in times of silence or struggle, the presence of an open door signals that God's purpose endures and that He is inviting you to walk in faith. The doors that open are often accompanied by peace, a peace that reassures you as you step forward. This peace acts like a light along the path, confirming that you are moving according to God's will. It helps you discern which doors to enter and which to wait for, avoiding distractions or detours that could lead you away from God's plan. Sometimes God opens doors in unexpected places, through new friendships, through acts of kindness, or through divine appointments you never anticipated. These openings may not always look like what you expected, but they carry the same divine purpose, to guide, to grow, and to prepare both hearts for what lies ahead. When you see these doors opening, it is a call to patience and persistence. It means that though the journey may be long and the path unclear, God is faithfully leading you step by step. It encourages you to stay committed, to keep praying, and to keep believing that what God has started will be brought to completion. The opening of doors also invites you to a posture of readiness. It challenges you to be willing to move, to change, and to embrace the unknown when God calls you forward. It asks you to be sensitive to His leading, to step through with courage, and to trust that He will make the way clear. In times when you are tempted to give up, remember that every open door is a sign of God's continued involvement. It is a reminder that He is working even when you do not see immediate results. He is preparing both hearts for the season to come, a season marked by growth, healing, and renewed connection. You may find that the open doors also bring opportunities to learn, to forgive, and to rebuild trust. These openings create spaces where old wounds can be healed and where new foundations can be laid. They serve as sacred invitations to deepen the bond and to align more closely with God's purpose. As you recognize these open doors, it is important to pray for wisdom and discernment. Not every open door is meant for immediate entry. Some require preparation and waiting. But God's Spirit will guide you, giving clarity on when to move and when to stand firm. When you walk through these doors with faith, you participate in the unfolding of God's plan. You become an active part of the story He is writing, a story of redemption, restoration, and divine purpose. These moments of openness are gifts from heaven, invitations to trust, to hope, and to believe in the power of God's promises. So hold on to these signs. When doors keep opening, do not rush to close them out of fear or impatience. Instead, step carefully and confidently into the opportunities God provides. Let them be a source of encouragement and strength as you continue on your journey. God's timing is perfect, and His plans are good. The opening of doors is a testament to His faithfulness, a reminder that He is working all things together for your good and for the good of the one He has placed in your life. When you see these doors, know that God's hand is present, that His Spirit is moving, and that His love endures. Walk forward with confidence, knowing that every open door is a divine invitation to step deeper into His purpose. In this you will find hope, healing, and the assurance that the best is yet to come. There are moments in life when your heart wants to let go, Not because you don't care anymore, but because holding on has hurt more than you expected. The weight of disappointment, the sting of betrayal, the slow grind of misunderstanding, these things build up like stones in the soul, and just when you're ready to turn away, to build walls where there once were open doors, you hear it. Not in the noise of the world, not in the echo of your own pain, but in the quiet whisper of the Spirit. It says, "Forgive again." That voice doesn't come from your pride, it doesn't come from your logic. It certainly doesn't come from the wounds still healing inside you. No, it comes from a deeper place. A sacred place where grace flows like a river and mercy still has room to work. It comes from the heart of God. That divine urging, that gentle but persistent tug on your spirit, it's not about weakness or denial. It's about obedience. It's about love. It's about letting something holy work in a space where your own strength has run dry. Forgiveness is not always a one-time act. Sometimes it is a decision made daily, even hourly, not because the offense was small, not because the memory fades quickly, but because God's call is clear. Keep your heart open. Keep the flow of grace moving. Keep the door unlatched, not because the other person deserves it, but because you are called to live from a place that rises above what is deserved. And that calling doesn't come without cost. It can be excruciating to forgive while still feeling the ache, to choose softness in the face of repeated pain, to offer kindness when you crave justice, but this is where heaven meets earth. This is where God's nature is made visible in your life. For every time you choose to forgive, you declare that love still reigns, that bitterness has not won, and that God's Spirit is greater than your hurt. There is a holiness in that kind of surrender, a sacred strength in refusing to let your heart become hard. When God urges you to keep forgiving, He's not asking you to forget what happened or pretend it didn't affect you. He's asking you to live free, free from the poison of resentment, free from the cycle of retaliation. Free to be who He called you to be, unburdened by the weight of what others did. You may wonder why the urge to forgive keeps returning. Maybe you've already forgiven once, maybe several times, but still there it is. That nudge, that divine pressure on your spirit, it's not because your previous efforts were insufficient. It's because healing is layered, and God knows that every time you forgive again, another layer is peeled back. Another scar begins to fade, another chain begins to fall. Sometimes that urging doesn't make sense. The world will tell you that you're being foolish. Your friends may advise you to move on, to protect yourself, to stop giving grace where it's been abused. And while wisdom and boundaries are vital, they are not the same as closing your heart. God doesn't call you to be reckless, but He does call you to be redemptive. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean allowing yourself to be hurt again and again, but it does mean releasing the grip of anger and choosing to bless instead of curse. You'll know the urging is from God when it leads you toward peace, not confusion. When it strengthens your spirit even as it challenges your flesh, when it draws you closer to His heart rather than entangling you in emotional chaos. This forgiveness, this divine act isn't just for the other person. It's for you too. It's for the softening of your own soul, the cleansing of your own heart. It's for your healing, because bitterness is a burden that only grows heavier the longer you carry it. And as you respond to that divine urging, you may begin to see small shifts. Maybe not in the other person, but in yourself. You start to breathe easier. You start to sleep better. You begin to see them not just through the lens of pain, but through the lens of grace. You remember that they, too, are flawed and growing. You realize that hurt people, and that somewhere along the line you too have needed forgiveness from others. That realization doesn't excuse the offense, but it positions you to love more deeply, more freely, more like Christ. It's in this continual act of forgiving that you come to understand more fully what God has done for you. He forgave you not once, not twice, but over and over, every time you failed, every time you ran. Every time you chose your way over his, he was there welcoming, restoring, renewing. And now he asks you to extend that same mercy. When the urging to forgive returns, don't resist it, don't ignore it. Lean into it, let it break down the barriers you've built, let it make room for healing to begin. It doesn't mean everything will be easy or that the relationship will be the same, but it does mean that your heart will not be held hostage by pain. You may not see the results right away. Forgiveness doesn't always yield immediate fruit. Sometimes the other person remains unchanged. Sometimes the situation stays messy, but your soul, your inner world becomes lighter, cleaner, more aligned with the heart of God. You begin to look more like Jesus, who from the cross, bleeding and broken, still chose to say, "Father, forgive them." That same spirit is in you, that same power to rise above offense, that same love that does not count wrongs but rejoices in the truth. It's not natural, it's supernatural, and it's available to you every time the Spirit nudges your heart. So even when it hurts, even when it feels like too much to ask, remember who you are and whose you are. You are not called to live according to the standards of this world. You are called to reflect the heart of a God who has forgiven everything you ever did, and continues to forgive even now. That urging. That gentle whisper, that's the voice of your Father. He sees the pain, he knows the cost, and still he says, "Forgive again." Not because you are weak, but because you are strong enough to love like he does. So take a breath, let go of the weight, open your hands, open your heart, and walk in the freedom that only forgiveness can bring. Because the moment you forgive, you're no longer bound by what they did. You're bound by what he's doing in you. And that, beloved, is holy ground. There comes a moment in every soul, deep connection, when you have to look beyond what has been and open your eyes to what could be, not just in yourself, but in the person standing across from you. There are times when the wounds are real, when the seasons have been long and hard, when mistakes have left their scars. But in the midst of all that, you see something different beginning to rise, a stirring, a turning, a sacred hunger in both hearts, not just to survive, not just to stay, but to become more than you were before. It's not always loud, and it's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's just a quiet moment, a softened word, a tear that shouldn't be there but is. Sometimes it's in the way they apologize when they never did before. Sometimes it's in your own heart when you find yourself reacting with grace instead of anger, with understanding instead of judgment. That's when you begin to realize something holy is happening. There is movement where there once was resistance. There is tenderness where once there was pride. It's a signal from heaven that the soil is breaking open and growth is on the way. Mutual growth doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean the two of you are walking in lockstep without struggle. What it means is that the hearts are pointed in the same direction. That the fire inside both souls is starting to burn for something better, something deeper, something higher than what the past has written. It means the desire to transform isn't just one-sided, it's shared. And when two people come into agreement that change is necessary, that love must evolve, that wounds must be healed and old habits must die, then something eternal begins to take root. It's in that sacred agreement that God does some of his best work. He doesn't wait for us to be perfect before he moves. He waits for willingness. Willingness opens the door to heaven's intervention. When both people begin to say, "I want to be better," not just for me, but for you, then the Spirit finds fertile ground to plant seeds of renewal. You start to see that growth is not just about fixing problems. It's about expanding your capacity to love, to forgive, to understand, to support, to be present, to endure. The miracle isn't always in the immediate outcome, it's in the consistent effort. It's in the late night talks that don't spiral into arguments. It's in the patience to listen even when you don't agree. It's in the way you begin to protect each other's hearts instead of just defending your own. That's when you know something is changing. That's when you know this is more than emotion, more than nostalgia, more than comfort. This is transformation, soul, deep, spirit-led transformation. What makes this growth sacred is that it costs something. Real growth demands surrender. It means letting go of old ways of thinking, outdated habits, selfish tendencies, and deep-rooted fears. It requires both people to look inward and say, "I've got some work to do." And when that recognition is mutual, when neither party is content to stay where they've always been, then God begins to build something strong, something durable, something that can weather the storm. Sometimes growth comes after failure, after the apology, after the tears, after the silence that almost made it all fall apart. But God, in His mercy, will stir hearts to try again, to speak more gently, to love more wisely, and it's in those second and third and fourth chances that grace becomes visible. Not just the kind of grace that tolerates, but the kind that transforms. When both people are seeking to grow, grace isn't seen as weakness. It's seen as the very fuel that keeps the connection alive. And here's the mystery of it. Mutual growth often leads to mutual healing. Because as you both rise, as you both stretch toward what's better, the past begins to lose its grip. You stop rehearsing the pain. You stop needing to be right. You stop keeping score. You begin to realize that your purpose together is bigger than the pain you've caused each other. That there's something God wants to birth through this relationship, and it can only come to pass when both hearts are open to being reshaped. There is no timeline for this kind of transformation. It doesn't happen overnight. It comes through seasons. Sometimes it feels like a sudden shift, and other times it's slow and unsteady. But when you both desire it, when the hunger for growth is mutual, it becomes a foundation you can build on. You start to trust again, not just the other person, but the process. You start to believe that the same God who brought you together can take you further than you ever imagined. And the beauty of mutual growth is that it honors the image of God in one another. When you see someone else not just as a problem to be fixed, but as a soul becoming, a person evolving, a heart being softened by divine hands, then you begin to love with a depth that is unshakable. You become not just lovers, not just companions, but witnesses to each other's transformation, and that kind of love, that kind of witness is rare and sacred. There will still be moments when it feels hard. There will be days when you doubt the progress, when old triggers flare up, when you wonder if it's worth it. But then you'll see it again, that flicker in their eyes, that shift in their tone, that gesture of humility, and you'll be reminded that the growth is real. That the change is happening, that the seed planted in faith is beginning to bear fruit, and in those moments you'll thank God that you didn't give up. You'll thank Him that you stayed when it would have been easier to walk away. You'll thank Him for the strength to see past who they were and believe in who they're becoming, and maybe they'll thank Him too for your patience, your love, your prayers, your persistence, because when two people commit to grow together, they become a living testimony of what grace can do, of what love can endure, of what God can build when hearts remain soft and spirits remain willing. So if you find yourself in that space where you see change not only in you but in them, where you feel that mutual desire rising like morning light after a long night, take heart. That's not just emotion, that's not just hope. That's God breathing on something you thought might have been finished. That's heaven saying, "I'm not done with this yet." Keep watering the soil. Keep praying for the process. Keep extending grace and receiving it. Because when the desire to grow and change is mutual, the possibility of something beautiful, enduring, and anointed is not only real, it's already beginning. So now we stand at the crossroads of spirit and decision. After all is said and done, after the prayers and tears, the wrestling and wondering, you are left with the quiet question in your heart: should I move on or should I hold on? This isn't a question you answer with your emotions alone, because emotions shift like the wind. You don't answer it with your fears, because fear will always choose the path of safety, not faith. And you certainly don't answer it with the opinion of others, because they don't know the depths of what God has spoken to you in the silence of your soul. No, this is a question you answer in stillness, with your ears tuned not to the noise of the world, but to the whisper of heaven. And when heaven whispers, it rarely shouts. It comes softly but surely. It comes through peace in the chaos, through doors that open again and again when you thought they'd close. It comes when your spirit is called to keep forgiving when your flesh wants to stop. It comes in the undeniable thread that keeps tying two hearts together, not in toxicity, not in desperation, but in sacred longing and redemptive possibility. It comes when you both start to grow, not just because you want to fix something broken, but because you both want to become more than what you were. And maybe, just maybe, God is saying, not yet, don't walk away. There is still something I'm doing here. Let us be honest, holding on takes courage. It takes faith to stay when everything in you wants relief. It takes maturity to love someone in process, someone imperfect, someone becoming. But God is always in the business of working through imperfect people. He's never required perfection to move. He just needs surrender. And if he finds two hearts, even broken ones, willing to surrender, he can do a new thing. So don't be discouraged if you haven't seen the full picture yet. Growth takes time, healing takes time. Love that lasts is not microwave love, it's slow. Cooked, tested by fire, proven through seasons, but if God is in it, he will sustain it. And if he's telling you not to move on, it's because there's still something holy in the making. Maybe this isn't just about romance. Maybe it's about purpose. Maybe the connection is part of your calling. Maybe the pain has been preparation. Maybe what you've gone through was never meant to end you, but to birth something deeper in both of you. Whatever the reason, if the Spirit has been nudging you, if your peace increases when you pray for them instead of pushing them away, if you see that flicker of change in both your heart and theirs, then honor that whisper, honor that holy ground. God doesn't tell us to hold on for no reason. If he's calling you to stay, it's because there's still a harvest coming. So breathe deep, set your face like flint. Trust in the God who sees beyond your understanding. He's the same God who parts seas, heals wounds, breaks chains, and resurrects what looks dead. He can take a relationship that feels too far gone and breathe life back into it. If God is telling you not to move on, then plant your feet, lift your head, and open your heart one more time. Love like you believe in redemption, forgive like you believe in healing, and grow like you believe that the story isn't over yet, because when he writes the ending, it's always better than what you had in mind.